This weekend marks 1 year since the deadly attack at one of the largest U.S. air bases in Afghanistan. On that fateful night, 15 Taliban were dressed in stolen American uniforms and somehow were able to sneak in to Camp Bastion. They were armed with automatic rifles and rocket-propelled grenades. A fierce battle then broke out, and 2 U.S. Marines were killed that night. So beyond the obvious human tragedy of that evening, the loss to the military was enormous. The attack destroyed 2 AV-8 Harriers that were worth $24 million apiece. It also destroyed 3 critical refueling stations. And killed that evening was this young man, the commanding officer of the Harrier Squadron, Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Raible. His widow and other relatives are still waiting for more answers on the watchtowers, who was manning them, what the kind of security they had was that evening, and how all of this loss came about. We are joined now today by Donnella Raible. Her husband was Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Raible, and we thank you and your family, Donnella, for the service that you have given to this country. We know that this is going to be a very hard 1-year anniversary for you, so thank you for being here today. Tell me a little bit about your husband, first of all.
Chris was a great guy. He was a hard worker. He loved commanding the Marines. He loved his job. He was a hard worker, and he went into everything he did with full vigor. He was a neat guy to know. Well,
we're looking at some great pictures of him right now, and we've read so many descriptions of him. He was absolutely beloved by the Marines who worked with him. And so when this bizarre attack began happening, and as I said, it was launched by 15 Taliban who had been watching Camp Bastion, according to the reports, and they had figured out the vulnerabilities there. And they figured out when the watchtowers weren't really being, taken care of, when the security was a little bit down, and they were able to sneak in those uniforms and start blasting away at these huge Harrier aircraft. It's an unbelievable story, and it's remarkable that so many Americans don't know more about it. What questions do you have about what happened that night, and what are you looking for answers to?
Well, my biggest question is I'm not sure how in this time, in this day and age, with the best military in the world, that we didn't have United States Marines guarding U.S. Marines. That is unfathomable to me. And I don't know how we could let this lapse in security go on. They knew that the problem existed, and I'm not sure why they let it go on and continue. And our Marines and everybody else on the base were in danger from that. So that's what I'd like to have answered.
I'm sure you would. And the story is that there were some guards from Tonga. It was originally a British base, and then it was became a British U.S. base. And really, the United States built this base up tremendously. But this also was happening during the beginning of the drawdown period. Do you think that that's part of the reason that these watchtowers were not manned by U.S. Marines, and that this was able to happen in the first place?
Well, that's a good question. I'd love to know that answer. I'm sure that they were watching to see when there were fewer personnel on the base, and with the drawdown, they saw that quite a big part of the squadron had left, and so they were left vulnerable and open to the attack. And it would be really interesting to know if the drawdown had anything to do with the fact that there was nobody in that watchtower watching out for our Marines.
And we know that as soon as the attack on the Harrier happened, your husband jumped into a vehicle and he went right into the line of fire there to protect the people on his base and to protect the base itself. He was truly a hero. And I know that over Labor Day, some of those who were wounded that night were honored with Purple Hearts. Has your husband been recognized and been honored for his heroic acts that evening?
He did. He did receive a Purple Heart. They did award him that, yes.
In terms of, we hear a lot, and we've covered a lot on this channel about Benghazi and the lack of security there that led to the loss of 4 Americans as well. Why do you think it is that so many people don't even know the story of what happened at Camp Bastion?
Well, I think Benghazi happened a few days before Camp Bastion was attacked, so that overshadowed everything that happened. And, the American public has kind of grown tired of hearing about all of the killings of our American servicemen. And so I'm sure that it got brushed under, and it was on the next page of news, and it wasn't front page like Benghazi and the all-important ambassador that was killed that night.
Well,
so
obviously,
just another battle in Afghanistan.
Important people at Camp Bastion, and one person who was extremely important to you. I know Michelle Malkin has brought a lot of attention to this story. GQ did a huge feature story on it as well. What do you hope the administration, or, I know you said to me when we spoke earlier that obviously you've spent this year, trying to put your life together, take care of your family as any mom would. But, as you're able to do that, do you intend to pursue to try to find out some more answers about what happened? And do you think you'll get a lot of feedback and response from people when you seek those answers?
So far, I know that the government has put forth a new investigation. I know they had a new investigation going, and I know the results are in, but they're reviewing them now before they come speak to the families about it. So I'm sure that I will get answers this year. I don't know if I will get answers as far as accountability and where the fault lies. Yeah. I mean, clearly we know that the towers weren't manned. I'm not sure if we'll ever find out who was responsible for putting the Tongans, or who was responsible for making sure that there was somebody in the watchtowers. I don't know if we'll ever find that out. But of all the contributing factors, I should find out most of that. I'm sure I will.
Donnella, we thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I know it's hard, and we will be thinking about you on this anniversary and your family. And we thank you so much for your service and for the service of your husband, who, by everyone's accounts, was just an incredible man. And we thank you very much for being with us today. All the best to you.
Thank you.
So we also have this as an aside on this story. We have learned that Prince Harry was stationed at Camp Bastion during that attack. He was there on a 3-month tour. He flew an attack helicopter at the time. GQ magazine has reported that the Taliban mission may have been designed in part to kill him. And according to the Daily Mail, the prince was whisked away to a safe house when the attackers broke in. And as you know from this story, the U.S. Marines were indeed the first line of defense. We thank Lieutenant Colonel Christopher K. Raible for his service to this country. Also, Sergeant Bradley Atwell, who was lost that night as well. We'll be right back.